Began with another move. The speed and frequency of my family's moves had convinced me we were being pursued by shadowy bounty hunters. It was probably more to do with the suddenly discovered histories of our chosen dwelling places than anything. Properties built on old graveyards don't just disturb the dead. This new purchase promised better luck, owned as it had been by the nuns and used by them to teach the lost art of catering. It even had an auspicious name, Stella Maris. We even knew the town we were moving into from summer reunion visits with relatives. We would now be the locals everyone gravitated towards. This was where shops sprouted bouquets of rainbowed beach accessories tied with rope that tugged at your heartstrings. Shops packed with stuff, souvenirs that you just had to have. Never mind the busloads of Yankee Doodle dandies pushing you out of the way to reach the Colleen dolls. Sticks of rock that bought dentists timeshares in the Algarve. But best of all was the lure of easy winnings, a veritable El Dorado. I hated the slot machines with their gear sticks, better handled by underage drivers and cow milkers. The lodestone for me was the 2 penny falls. Gold Rush fervour wasn't in it as we jostled for best position at the most crammed trays. Those coveted copper waterfalls had much in keeping with the spirit of the town, as its literal name was Foot of the Little Water. This more apt than its everyday working title of Bundoran. That was the town in summer, but we arrived at the end of March. The colour was missing. The vista was a damp, mizzly grey. Undeterred by leaking spouts, reports that stated how many B&Bs went under in their first season, and fungus in the attic, a reunion picnic was our first priority. We were events managers before the term was coined. A blurry photograph remains as evidence of that day. The dress I'm wearing was pure vintage even then. I discovered it in a garret cupboard. Although I scissored it to meet my knees, I still look like a ghost lost in time. We didn't go far. To the West End pool, to be exact. The only outdoor pool in the county and a local secret. That day, as we descended the rickety wooden steps to reach the warm, flat black rocks below, we were blind to certain absences. The usual swimmers and strollers weren't there, and yet the sun had made an appearance and the pool glinted brilliantine blue. Even the gulls, kittiwakes and terns weren't sounding the air. The tartan flasks of tea were lined up like skittles. I wandered off in search of lucrative pickings, the secret of secrets in local life, fossils. The delicate tracery of prehistoric swimmers on shards of black rock looked as if they'd been stamped in place. I found my first ammonite and went to cradle it by the poolside, far from the old fogies who didn't get how much they had in common with the dinosaurs who'd swam with my find. It slipped from my hands. I couldn't lose it. Diving into the pool after it, the waters churned and filled with seaweed. The dress ballooned. I turned to head back up to the surface, but the depths had deepened. The blue was brown and shadowed. A stone hit my face as some kelp pinioned me. I flailed and felt my fingers close around my ammonite flint. I used it to saw the kelp stalk and globbed to the surface. Pulling myself out onto the rockside felt like disengaging from a pot of treacle. A tartan flask rolled past my nose. I turned around. The rocks were empty. If I had expected rescue from strong and anxious hands, I would have still been waiting. Where had they all gone? I plodded toward the steps. No doubt I had slipped through a time portal and was now marooned in someone else's time and space. Something glinted in the rocks. The silver insides of a flask. The only thing strong enough, I looked behind and saw another freak wave powering towards the shore. I ran and climbed the steps at Guinness Book record speed. Where were you? But there are just some questions you shouldn't answer.